All right, I start this video. I know it's grainy, it's hard to see, but this is your view out in the middle of the ocean. What I want you to notice is what you don't see, because you see the sky, see the water, but you don't see anything else. There's no landmarks, there's no real way to tell which direction you're going, how far to get somewhere. There's no McDonald's passing by that you can pick up food. The ocean really is a desert. Okay, people think, well, you know what? I'll go fishing, right? I'll go fishing and get food. Well, sorry to say, but way out in the middle of the ocean, there's no fishing out there. You are um, you're in the middle of nowhere where there's no food. So you have to be able to be very sure of what you're doing. So I brought that up because we're going to be talking about the danger at sea, the explorers and what they went through as they started exploring. Last time we talked about why they went out exploring, and now we're going to talk about their ordeal. What did they have to face? They had poor maps, not enough food. The crew was terrified. I mean, if that's all you saw every day, that picture of that water, and you didn't know if you were ever going to see land again, it's pretty scary because there was no the maps weren't all drawn up yet. They didn't even know about the Americas. They didn't know about all these islands out in the ocean. They didn't know how far to go to get to Asia. Um, so it was a very scary thing. I mean, really, you start to understand with the whole Black Death and the mentality of the Europeans that, they just wanted to make their life mean something before they died because they didn't know when that was going to be. And it was just in their general makeup at the time to go ahead and take these risks that no one else was willing to take. There were plenty of people that started doing this from all different countries that the book will go into. But what I'd like to focus on are these two boxes right here. And of course, Christopher Columbus. We're coming up on Columbus Day, even though we really don't celebrate it anymore. Christopher Columbus is responsible for getting the whole exploration into Europe. Otherwise, we would have seen just explorers really going around Africa. Now, the big misconception is that Christopher Columbus discovered that the Earth was round, and nobody else knew that. And I have to tell you, that is absolutely not true. Everybody knew the world was round. The problem was we didn't know how big it was. Okay? So Christopher Columbus believed that Asia, that North and South America didn't exist, and that this one big Pacific Atlantic Ocean that would be together was much smaller than this. So if he were to sail from Spain to China, he would thought China would be somewhere around here. Okay, that the Earth was much smaller than everybody else was saying. Everybody was saying, no, no, no. The Earth is it's bigger. They had it right. So they all knew the Earth was round, that you could go this way, but that this ocean was going to be too. Imagine if North and South America were not in this map. Just, erase them from this map. And that this is one big ocean here. When we talk about Christopher Columbus barely made it to these islands over here. I mean, just barely by the skin of their teeth. I mean, they went past the point of no return. Um, so when they were sailing, they had no choice but to keep going. And if they used up all, they've sailed as far as they could before they all starved to death, they probably would have gotten to about here. Nowhere near China. Nowhere near any, get close to Hawaii maybe, but they probably would have died right somewhere over here if there was no land masses to land on and get food and water and resupply and so forth. They would have run out of food and starved somewhere around here, I'm guessing. So that's what everybody was saying is that there's just water. It's too far to get to China. You're never going to make it. And Christopher Columbus said, no, China is really like right around here, and I'll get to it. I just got to sail across this little ocean here, and then I'll get to China. And it's interesting because everybody gives him, the common thought is that people give him credit that he was the only one that knew that the Earth was round, and that he was able to go in this direction. And no, no, no. It was actually Christopher Columbus was desperately wrong about how big the Earth was, and was very fortunate that there were two continents here, just sitting out in the middle of this, what everybody thought was this impassable ocean. And he was able to land, and the rest is history. So let's go back to the text. So that's what I wanted to say about Christopher Columbus and how they were able to get to the Americas. But these two boxes right here are really what we need to focus on, um, for our class. Uh, we need to focus on the obstacles. Okay, so the obstacles that these explorers face were poor maps. Oops. Poor maps and navigational tools. There's no GPS. There's no iPhones back then. You don't have the GPS in your cars, and for Christopher Columbus and all these other people. Um, so they had to start making better maps. They started had to make better navigational tools. I mean, yes, you can go by the stars, but what if it's cloudy? Same thing with the sun. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But what if it's cloudy? What if there's a storm? There's no way to tell which direction you're facing. And you remember this ocean view here that we're looking at. There's no way to tell if you're just by looking at the water that you're going east or west. You can do that on on 460. You can tell which direction. You can look at the mountains, like, okay, well, that way, or look at the moss on trees or whatever else, signs that you can tell from the land to know which way you're going. But in the ocean, there's no such advantage. So they need to come up with tools in order to get there. Because if you don't have a good map and you have poor navigational tools, you don't know which way you're pointing, you can go around in circles in the ocean and not even know it, and then your food runs out and everybody starves. Which brings it to the next one, disease and starvation. So you only have a certain amount of room on each ship to put food on, and that has to last. I mean, if they find rats in the food or bugs, or something happens to the food, or the trip goes on longer than they thought it would, then you're going to run out of food, and of course, without food, you die. Also, probably even bigger fear was disease. If somebody gets sick on the ship, there's nowhere to go. You can't, it's very difficult to isolate the person that gets sick, and then they start spreading the disease. Everybody gets sick, and who's left to take care of them? Even if it's not a life-threatening disease, if you guys are all very sick on a boat, there's nobody to sail the ship, and you guys are in big trouble. So disease and starvation were number two reason why it was, and you can't go to MedExpress or to a hospital or a doctor. You are out at sea. So you rely on whoever's on the ship, and that's it. Fear of the unknown. Now this is a big one. They're going into areas they don't know what kind of creatures are out there, how bad the storms are going to be, when they get to the other lands, are those people going to accept them, be nice to them, shoot them, whatever. It, Interesting story about Christopher Columbus. He landed in right over here in Hispaniola, which is right by Puerto Rico and by Florida. Cuba is a little bit off, but he landed in Hispaniola, and the tribes there were very friendly to him. If he had landed on a different island, just across, I mean, an island that they could see, that's how close it was. He would have run into a very aggressive tribe that would have killed his men on sight. And then we never would have heard of Christopher Columbus. He would have disappeared, and all these European countries said, "See, Christopher Columbus was wrong. He's a dummy. We knew the Earth was this big, and you couldn't make it." And nobody would have come across, at least for a very long time. So that was a very important event. Very lucky for Christopher Columbus to run into the nice tribes instead of the very aggressive tribes. So, but I mean, that's what they were working with. They did not know what they were going to face, and this thing is not cooperating. They didn't know what was out there, and that's very scary. If you ever been in a situation where you don't know what's coming next, and that there could be danger out there, that really raises your survival instincts. Just think about, watch a scary movie and then it's late at night and you have to go down in the basement to get something. You can't see what's going on. Who knows if there's an alien or something down there waiting for you. So, fear of the unknown is definitely something that paralyzes people. And then finally, lack of adequate supplies. How much food would they have to bring? Gunpowder. If you bring too many guns and gunpowder and not enough food, then you die. And if you bring too much food and not enough guns, and you run into the wrong tribes, and then they kill you, then it's the same effect. So you had to really plan ahead, and you really it's almost impossible to plan because you really don't know because everything is unknown of what to bring. So how do you know what to bring? It was just a guessing game, and it was very, very difficult. So these are the obstacles that these explorers face, and they're very significant. And then finally, what did the explorers achieve? What did they finally do? And this kind of dovetails with the obstacles and also the title of this chapter. They create new exchanges, the trade routes that we talked about that were so important. They set up new trade routes with the Americas for things that Europe is very interested in, and they find that they don't have to even barter or almost beg the other side to give them the cool stuff. They can almost pretty much take it and then bring it back to their country. A lot of times they do just steal it and bring it back to America. They develop new ships and tools. They become the premier maritime uh, continent on the face of the earth. Europe becomes very adept at building ships. They had to make better maps than anybody else. They had to make better navigational tools than anybody else. So Europe is very good at sailing, moving around. So when it comes to quick, easy trade, the ships are perfect. Think about if you want to trade with somebody in California and you don't have any vehicles, you have to carry everything. Say you make chairs and you have to get the chairs to California. Well, how many chairs can you carry? And is it even desirable to carry a chair across the country? No, it's not. But if you had a boat, you can just load up a whole bunch of chairs onto the boat and then just sail it to wherever you need to go. And that's where the Europeans found themselves, that they had these great, the best, even today, in order to transport goods, ships are the best way to go. And they are now the ones that everybody's going to turn to start shipping things around. And then finally, new lands. They discover new lands. They start claiming them, declaring them for their king, and it's almost like free land. That's how they view it. They look at the Indian tribes' lands as land that no one has claimed, no one owns, and they're going to just say, "Hey, it's mine. It's our country," and that's uh, that's going to give them a lot of wealth and power, and bring in that glory part. If you are an explorer and you go and find a new land, and then say, okay, well, it's now part of my king's land. Your king, who has financed you, is going to be very pleased with you, and he's going to let you have some of the wealth that's being brought over from there. You're going to be in control. He might declare you governor or whatever. So everybody's really motivated. The king wants the land so that he can get money from the trade there. He can tax it. The people that are claiming the land are very excited because now they'll be able to grab whatever resources are coming from there and trade it back to the mother country, and the people in the mother country are very happy to get all this new trade, make opportunities, make money, and enjoy all the things that they'll bring from the new world.